Thank you everyone for tuning in today, and welcome to today's webinar with the topic, an overview of the skilled personality assessment. This webinar is hosted by the company Skeeled, and for those who do not know us yet, Skeeled, we are a Belgian and Luxembourgese SaaS company, and we offer a recruitment software that brings innovation and digitalization to HR departments. We aim to give the best possible experience to the candidates by letting them apply not only via a CV, but also through a personality evaluation, the topic of today, and exceptionally as well through a video interview. So who am I? My name is Jose, and I'm a customer success manager here in Brussels office, and I'm going to be your moderator for today. I have with me Antonio Gomez. He's our psychology expert at Skilled. He's located in the office at Porto, and he will be presenting you the topic of personality and what is its main impact in recruitment. So just before we start, I would like to explain that on the right side of your screen, you should see a chat box with different sections. And in the Q&A chat, you can ask any questions that you need during the entire webinar. And but it's very important that you ask these questions on the Q&A and not in the direct chat. Otherwise, we will not be able to get them. All the questions will be private, so don't be afraid to ask anything. It's anonymous. We will collect them during the webinar while Antonio presents, and I will pick up the most relevant ones. So Antonio, our expert, will be able to answer you. If your question is not answered, we will come back to you at a later stage for sure. Good. So now I will give the word to my colleague, Antonio Gomez, who will present the topic. He will share the screen with you with the presentation. Thank you very much.
Okay. Thank you, Jose, for this warm introduction. And welcome, everyone. I'm just going to share my screen. The topic of today's webinar is an overview over skilled personality assessment. And for our agenda today, we will be talking about what is personality, what is the Big Five model. We will dive into skilled personality assessment, the personal characteristics inventory, and we will see how to analyze a profile and see the impact of personality assessment in recruitment. And finally, we will see how the candidate experience is during this process. So, before we start this journey, I'd like to let you know who I am. My name is Antonio. I'm the psychology expert here at Skill. You can find here my contact info, where you can reach me out in the future if you have any questions regarding our personality assessment. For the questions that you asked throughout this webinar, as my colleague has already stated, you can write them on the chat box. So before we begin, now that we have all the information, let us begin then. So during the recruitment process, it is of vital importance that recruiters gather all the relevant information about a candidate, and in order to make a more informed and a more informed hiring decision. So personality can have a big difference, can make a big difference in this decision-making process, as it can give you an insight on how a candidate might behave or might even perform on a job. And this assessment can be done before hiring your candidate. So how does this usually work? Well, when analyzing a candidate's profile without any kind of additional assessment, recruiters often find themselves a little bit limited, and their only concern is to know if a candidate is fit for the job position or not. And that is why personality is extremely useful. These tests have the advantage of giving recruiters this additional information that can help them identify the fitness of a candidate. These tests can provide you insight on how a candidate will fit in a job position and how it will adapt to your company work environment. And this is why personality is one of the first steps of the recruitment process at Skilled, because we believe that this provides a very good asset for the recruiters to identify the best candidates at an early stage of the process. So, what is personality? Well, personality can be described as the idiosyncratic way that each individual thinks, feels, and behaves. In other words, it refers to the individual differences of characteristics, patterns of thinking, feeling, and behaving. As in these patterns have an influence on our cognitive, on our emotional, and on our behavioral dimensions. And these dimensions will influence the impact, will have an impact on the workplace. For example, it will influence how a candidate will perceive that workplace, how he will feel about that workplace, and how he will behave in it. It will also have an impact on the interaction with others, with his peers, with his managers, and even with clients. So personality assessments, as any other kind of psychological assessment, must be based on a theoretical model. And this theoretical model must be scientifically proven. The Big Five model, which is the central framework that is in the center of personality psychology, has been studied and has been validated all over the world, and is nowadays the most well-known framework, and it's the most accepted one. This model categorizes the whole spectrum of personality into five big dimensions. And now we will see what are those big five dimensions. So first, we have conscientiousness. This dimension is related to the tendency to plan, to organize, and to carry out tasks in a disciplined manner. Usually, high conscientious individuals tend to be very responsible, very organized, and very goal-oriented. Then we have emotional stability. This dimension is related to the tendency to handle stress, to maintain an even temperament, and to have a high degree of composure and self-confidence throughout most situations. Normally, individuals who have low levels of emotional stability usually overreact to little things and have really difficulties to handle stress. Then we have extroversion. Extroversion is related to the level of comfortability that an individual has in social interactions. It can also be characterized by an energetic approach toward the social world. So usually, high extroverted individuals tend to be very talkative, very enthusiastic. They are very driven by social interactions and even usually strive for this kind of interactions. Then we have agreeableness. Well, agreeableness, also known as friendliness, can be described as a tendency to be cooperative, to be considerate, to be helpful. Usually, individuals in this kind of dimension manifest traits as being good-natured, to be trustworthy, and usually like to help others. And finally, we have openness to experience. This dimension is related to the individual disposition on experiencing new things, to get out of his comfort zone and to think outside the box. This dimension is also very related to creativity. Usually, eye-open individuals are very creative, imaginative, and they are very driven to acquiring new skills and new knowledges. And they prefer tasks that are rather diversified rather than be routine tasks. So these are the big five I mentioned and their descriptions. Now that you have seen them, we are now going to dive into skilled personality assessment, the PCA. So we here at Skilled are very concerned about providing a scientifically proven personality assessment, as we believe that recruitment should be evidence-based. And that is why our test of choice is the personal characteristics inventory. This test was developed by Wonderlic. It is a very valid and reliable personality test, and it provides an accurate assessment of the individual personality. The PCI is a normative test, and well, it's a type of evaluation that provides an estimation of the result of a test taker in comparison with the general population. Usually, the results are represented at percentile. So, what does that mean? Well, for example, imagine that your candidate has scored in the 80th percentile in the dimension of extroversion. Well, this means that he has scored as high or higher than 80% of the general population in the dimension of extroversion. Okay, so this is what I mean, what the results of our personality tests mean, since it is a normative test. And being a normative test, this enables test results to be compared. And therefore, recruiters can take two profiles of the candidates that have took the same personality test, and then can compare the results and find out which are the best candidates for their job position. Also, the PCI provides the desired ranges that each test taker's score should be in regarding a job position. So when you first create the job in Skilled platform and you have selected the personality test as one of your steps in your recruitment process, you will be asked to choose to specify your job position in order to the PCI analyze the results and provide you with the best ranges which the personality of your candidate should be in order to be a top performer. These studies were conducted by Wonderlic, and they did a lot of research and benchmark studies and data analysis in order to provide this information. Okay. And then we have the 12 subskills. Well, the subskills can give you a more detailed description of some traits that are related to the big dimensions. So normally each big dimension has 2 to 3 subscales, and these subscales usually allow recruiters to have a more in-depth analysis on a candidate's profile and really find out which one will be the best match for your company. And finally, the PCI provides success scales. What are success scales? Well, success scales are an overall score on most characteristics that most employers want to look in their employees. And they are commitment to work, which is how likely a candidate can remain in a single position for a long time. Integrity, which is the likelihood of engaging in counterproductive behaviors. Learning orientation, which is the extent to which candidate is willing to knowledge and skills. And finally, teamwork, which is how effectively the candidate is likely to behave in a team environment. So now that we have seen what the kind of information the PCI can provide us, let us see how to analyze it and how to analyze the profile. Well, in order to do so, we first have to understand the position, and we have to understand the tasks that are related to that position. Okay, so I'll give you an example so you can understand what I mean. Imagine that you are hiring for a position that requires very little social interaction, practically a job where the employee will have to kind of be isolated, working in his office without much of interaction. Now you have a prospect hiring, and this prospect has high levels of extroversion. How do you think he is going to fit in this job position? Not very good. As he is very extroverted, he will strive for social interaction, and he will not be able to get this social interaction for this job position, and this will result as a problem for you in the future. And then we must understand team dynamics. Okay, if a coworker will work in a team, it's very important to understand team dynamics and the personality traits of its peers. For instance, imagine that your team is very conscientious, and that means that there is a clear proclivity to order and to organization. Now you have a prospect you're hiring, and this person has very low levels of conscientiousness. Well, how do you think this is going to come out? Not very good as well. This will impact for sure the dynamic of the team. This will impact the way that they will work, and this will definitely impact their performance for sure. And then we have to understand the work environment. We have to check the characteristics of the work environment to ensure that our potential hire will be able to adapt and will be able to start showing results and at an early stage. So what's the impact of all of this in your recruitment process? Well, first of all, since you are hiring the right people for the right job, you will increase the effectiveness of the hiring, because if they are right for the job, they will stay in that job, and they will be more productive, and they will be more productive than a candidate that might be recruited without any kind of assessment to substantiate that decision making. And then you will increase your organizational performance. Well, if you are hiring top performance workers, your organizational performance will increase, as it will also depend on the people that you have on your organization. Okay. And then finally, you will decrease turnover rates. Well, since you are hiring 50 people for each job, the individuals that you are hiring will be more likely to engage rather than to resign. And finally, the candidate experience. So here at Skeeled, we are very concerned about the candidate experience, and this is why we design an easy and accessible platform and an accessible process for applicants. So after applying for a particular job and having met the requirements of the job, the candidate is invited by email to do a personality test. He will then be redirected to our platform. He will have to answer 150 questions that usually take around 15-20 minutes to complete. And after that, he will have the opportunity to review his personality test and then submit it. If there is no other step contemplated, like the video interview, he will receive a notification saying that his application has been successfully submitted. And, well, of course, our platform is compatible with desktop, is compatible with smartphones and with tablets. With these three devices, as long as applicants have a good internet connection, they will be able to do all steps of the recruitment process in our platform whenever they want and where they want, the way they want. So that's the end of the webinar. Thank you very much. We'll now start the Q&A session, and I'll see you soon.
Great. Thank you, Antonio, for your presentation on personality. As I saw here on the webinar, we have few of our clients logged in. They had some questions about the personality, the right methodology. So I hope some of those questions were answered now. Otherwise, you can post a question now on the Q&A if you need a specific answer. In the meantime, some people have asked us questions privately here during the webinar, and well, I'm going to pick up a few of them. I see, for example, here, Adeline, she asked, what kind of validation studies were done to validate this instrument?
Well, there were done, there was a convergent validation and divergent validation. So our personality test was validated between Hogan's assessment. I think that was between the NeoPi, Norman's bipolar objective checklist, and maybe Goldberg's. So the validation study, convergent validation study, was done between these five personality tests, and the results are very, very good. In terms of divergent validation, there was made a study with WPT, which is a test for cognitive ability, which the results were very congruent with what they were looking for. So the psychometrics of the test are very, very strong.
Mm-hmm. Okay. We have here Andre. He asks, when a candidate scores, for example, 80 in extraversion, what does that really mean?
It means that individual will be more extroverted than 80% of the general population. The results are always displayed as a comparison between the population. This has the great advantage to give recruiters the opportunity to compare results between applicants and really define which one is the best for the job position.
Mm-hmm. Okay. There is also another question here. How do you define the best score on each 5 dimensions per job? Is this process semi-automated?
Well, I believe that this question is about the desired ranges. So Wonderlic did their benchmark studies and research, and they identify which were the best top performance in the company which they had their personality assessment instated, and then they were able to analyze and to identify what were the ranges that really were compatible between all top performers.
Mm-hmm. Okay. There is another question coming up here from someone. It says, the PCI model displays a green area for each peak 5 dimension on what's the ideal score. Is that always the same for each job, or does that green area change from vacancy to vacancy?
They change, of course. Well, if you are hiring for a sales individual, the personality traits that you are looking for a top performance will be very different for a software developer, for example. So they have to change.
Okay. So, for example, someone in marketing or sales maybe has a requirement to have a higher, let's say, extraversion, or maybe than someone who's working in IT, or in software development.
Yes, for sure.
Okay. Yeah, that's clear. Okay. Also, they ask us here, will you guys share the content so we can read better later? Yes. Well, actually, the webinar is being recorded. So after it's finished, I think tomorrow we're going to send to all the participants the link to watch the webinar once again with the video and with the slides, so that they will be available for anyone to rewatch. Well, let's see if some other questions come up. Maybe if someone has a last minute question, as we mentioned, I mean, it's a webinar. We don't want to make it for 1 hour because otherwise it's too long. And I think the topic was quite straight to the point and clear. There are no questions. There are no more questions that we can see so far. Yes, there is. Yeah, there is one more question right now. Good. Some people are asking. All right. So someone asks, do I understand correctly that the personality test comes as an extra screening step before setting up a first interview?
Yes. And this actually can be an advantage for a recruiter, which is you have the results of a personality test of an individual, and you can really redirect your interview through the results of the personality of that candidate, and really try to understand if he really is the right fit for your job position.
Yes, no, indeed. What we've noticed with some of our clients, it's that when the candidate applies with the CV, and then after he's invited to do a personality assessment through our technology, basically the recruiter can see the results. And when he invites that person to the interview, since he knows the results already beforehand, they can ask specific questions on that specific dimension to see whether it's true and whether the results are valid. So indeed, it's a pre-screening tool. We have another question. They're all coming now. That's cool. Imagine a candidate scores very low in one of the metrics, but very high in the remaining. Does that mean the person is not a good fit?
Well, that depends on the dimensions. That depends, as I say, we have to check. We have to check the job position and the tasks. We have to check the team dynamics and the work environment. It's really important to understand what we are looking for in our prospect hiring in order to really understand what kind of profile we need to look for in the candidates. Okay.
Okay. Another question. Will you add other tests in the future?
Well, step by step. I think that pre-selection tools are very important in the recruitment process, and I think that the longer we will go in the future, the more we'll think about it, and this will definitely help recruiters to really hire the best candidates. Also, we'll also look for gamification, try to make this process a lot more attractive for applicants, of course.
Indeed. We have another question coming in. This one, I think it's a bit tricky. Maybe, Antonio, you can help there. So what's the percentage of candidates indeed filling in the test questionnaire, or what's the drop-off rate at this stage?
Very low. Very, very low. Actually, personality assessment has low drop-off rates at this point. I think that candidates really enjoy doing the personality test in order to show the recruiter on the other side really their personality.
Indeed. No, and at the end of the day, I mean, when the candidate receives an answer from the company saying, "Hey, your CV was good. We have invited you to do a personality evaluation." Actually, it's an extra motivational incentive for the candidate, and the candidate really appreciates that he's allowed to not only show his CV in a paper, but also present his personality. So here it's me with my education, my experience, but also here's my personality. So actually, we have very good feedback from candidates there, and they are quite happy with the model. So we have another question. Why the Big Five and not the MBTI, for example?
Well, when we were looking for personality assessments in the market, we really thought that the Big Five theoretical model should be the one that we were focusing on, because it's really the most accepted in the scientific community, and Wonderlic really has a really good personality assessment as it really predicts job performance on their assessment, and that is why we chose the Wonderlic, but also the Big Five, mainly because of the scientifically evidence that they have provide us all over the recent times.
Mm-hmm. There's another question regarding the average of the population. Do you know if the test considers the population from all of the world, we know we have cultural differences, and in some regions, people can be more introvert, for example. How the test can evaluate this issue?
Well, there are the articles saying that the Big Five is it was studied and was validated all over the world. And the way that this personality test was built was by inferential statistics, which is regarding to the general population. So yeah.
Okay. So as to understand better, it has taken the whole. I mean, it's a test that actually has been tested from population from countries all around the world, despite of the differences, cultural differences.
Yes, the theoretical model is transversal to the whole world. The theoretical model, of course.
Okay. There is another question. Why do you do the personality evaluation for the candidates in the early steps of the process and not later in the process?
Well, that's a very good question. It's very simple because personality assessments at an early stage in the process will give recruiters the opportunity to identify the best candidates and really identify and select the best ones to go to the next phase of their processes. Okay. So this also means that you will have more time to focus on other kind of things regarding the best candidates of your recruitment process.
Okay. Okay. Okay, good. So we're going to pick the last question for the webinar, and it's a question about diversity. So the question is, how about diversity? Aren't there also benefits in recruiting people with different personalities for a similar job?
Well, of course, it is very important to really see what we are looking for in the candidate. And like I said, for example, taking into consideration, for example, team dynamics, we can really by putting a different kind of person in charge of a team, for example, that will also have an impact on how that team will work in the future. So we really have to visualize the profile that we are looking for in our candidate, and then define what kind of personality traits will be more relevant for the position to be done the way that we want them to perform. And after that, of course, the work environment, which will have an impact on how the candidate will adapt to the company.
Mm-hmm. Okay. No, indeed. So basically what we do at Skeeled, we offer the personality evaluation in terms of personality, but also every company has a culture, a way of seeing diversity, and each company has it on a different manner. So actually we combine our personality assessment with also a work satisfaction survey, work environment survey, so that both company culture and personality are both mixed, and that makes more sense for companies to take a better decision.
Yes, exactly.
Okay. Thanks a lot, Antonio. Thanks a lot for the answers. I mean, I hope that we really clarified some of the questions that the people had. Yeah, well, we're very happy to have you here today. It's been a pleasure. We will have more webinars coming on. Next month, we will have another one. The topic still to be announced. So keep posted. Thanks a lot for the effort, for coming and visiting Skeeled, and have a nice day.
Yeah, thank you very much. Thank you very much. And I would just would like to add, if you really have some other questions that might come up, feel free to reach out, as I will be more than happy to answer them. Okay, so keep posted, and I'll see you soon.
Bye bye.
Bye.